Well, welcome to another episode of Keep Africa Trading, Trademark Africa's podcast, where we explore innovations, policies, and partnerships shaping trade across the African continent. I'm your host, Moses Kemibara, and today we're live once again at the Africa Trade Development Forum 2024 in Kigali, Rwanda, being the 2nd and the 3rd of December. The theme is digital trade, and our next guest is really going to tell us how they're using transformative technology to enhance and connect markets across Africa to the rest of the world. He's also going to share unique insights on how Africa is harnessing digital tools to redefine its trade landscape. Thank you for joining us, Jens.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, maybe you can start off by introducing yourself and telling us which organization you represent and what it is that you do there.
Yeah, so my name is Jens Munk, and my background is international trade. I worked for Maersk for 10 years, so it's
Maersk,
really coming from the shipping
company. Wow.
Yeah. And then when I was there, I was realizing, it's not only about what happens on the oceans. It's actually what happens in the full supply chain.
End to end, huh?
Yeah, exactly. And we did a study when I was there where we followed a container of avocados out of Kenya. And instead of following the container, we followed the data. And what we found out was 30 actors was involved for one shipment. 200 pieces of information was exchanged from, phytosanitary certificates to certificate of origin to I'm calling you because I don't know where my container is.
There's the effort in it, huh?
It's crazy, this ecosystem, right? And that's just to move one container. So the cost of trade, one thing is physical movements and so on, but the data involved is the same cost as actually moving the stuff.
Wow. So
you got to look at that barrier. And that's the biggest barrier there is to trade, but it's also the faster thing you can optimize at the moment. So today I work for the IOTA Foundation. The IOTA Foundation is a blockchain foundation, so it's a research foundation. It's a non-for-profit in Germany that has built out the IOTA blockchain, but are heavily investing in and supporting people to build use cases. So we worked with Trademark Africa for more than 4 or 5 years now.
Okay.
And it's resulted in a remarkable technology that only Kenya has. And that is that we work with Kenya revenue authorities, the single window systems here as well, and CAFES, all the big border agencies. And we took the key components to have a digital infrastructure. We built them and we installed them with these agencies. So if you're a trader today in Kenya, you can actually pull out your trade documents directly from government systems, and you have them securely on a blockchain. And you have all the permissions you need and so on. You can start to share it overseas for import with everybody in the ecosystem, right? So it's just about to go live.
Oh, really? Okay.
But, the capability is there. So, and therefore the discussions that we have at this conference, it's just spot on, right? It's just spot on. How do we enable more trade for the continent? 40%, that's the number of inter-African trade. That's 60% in Europe and 70% in Asia, right? The inter-Africa trade is really not very strong. So what are the big barriers? And I think data sharing is one of the most important things we need to look at.
So when you think about digital trade in the context of where we are today and what your platform is hopefully going to, bring to the mix, so to speak, what are the implications? What are the potential benefits or cost savings, time savings even, that will come out of this new development or, going live, as it were, on your platform?
Yeah, no, so of course. We had 40 different actors involved in pilots, from traders, flour, coffee, tea, and across the board, it's, the benefits are many, which is really interesting. So what are the key benefits?
Yeah.
The key benefits for the big traders are visibility. They really want to know, where's the goods? Why am I not getting my certificate of export? Who is holding up the things?
Visibility, yeah?
Full visibility. So they say, I need to sleep good at night. I need to know where my flowers are or where my coffee is. I don't know why hasn't it landed at the port? Why hasn't it moved through the port? Is it customs who's holding it up? Is it port officials? We don't know. We just doesn't move. Is it because data is missing? We don't know. So we start to call around. We spend a lot of time doing this kind of things, right? So that's business can really gain a lot there. And the calculations is it could potentially take 20% off the cost. Because if you have a container that is waiting 2 extra days, there could be, $90,000 worth of coffee in that container that you have trade finance for 2 days. And if it's flowers and it doesn't go to the end consumer,
time,
right?
yes.
You don't get any love for those flowers if they start to,
Wow.
So time is really money here, right?
Completely. Especially for, of course, perishable products.
Yeah.
So how do you see digital trade reshaping Africa's regional and global trade integration?
I do think that this is the huge opportunity, right? As mentioned before, the inter-African trade is very little compared to other regions. And what is hampering this? I mean, you have the AfCFTA, you have the free trade area, the biggest free trade area in the world. So it shouldn't be the paper, the manual processes that hampers this.
Yeah.
And I think that's where something like this can benefit. And we've been working also with the UK government now for 18 months with Cabinet Office leading it. And it's the same result, right? A Kenyan trader could potentially reach and then give the British their tea a little bit faster and a little bit more efficient than they can today. And that will open up markets and create jobs.
What about when you think about digital infrastructure, broadband access, payments? What about those other aspects, which I think are critical to what you do as well?
It is. I do think that, we're starting a little bit from the top. That means we're starting business to business.
Yes, correct.
And there's a lot of SMEs, but even an SME has a smartphone in his pocket, right? So I don't think it's that big a barrier that we're talking about when we talk about broadband and so on. What is the next evolution after we got the data is the finance capabilities. I think that's where we'll see the next. We are starting pilots in trade finance.
Okay.
Because what is a trade financer doing? Well, he looks at your risk profile and he looks at the commodities. Are those coffee actually exist? Are they moving? Has they been checked at the border? Are there real
quality issues?
All these data we get directly out from the government now. So you can say, hey, it's there. The commodity is there. It's been checked by the veterinary and the phytosanitary
and inspectors. Yeah.
Inspectors. So, and he's selling to Unilever in Europe. If he's selling to Unilever in Europe, why do I then need to risk profile him financially on his business in Kenya? Because it's Unilever that will they default in the payment? Probably not.
So even like the credit scoring piece, it becomes so much easier now.
Yeah, and that I think we're not there, but this could be the big price in the end, right? Trade finance is a huge issue for not only in Africa but globally. It's the big issue.
But you can always imagine that, with that transparency where a potential buyer or potential financier can see clearly who you're trading with, the volumes, the aspects of the transactional piece, your cash flows, etc. Then it just provides almost like a proof of, confidence, as it were, that I can do business with this guy. This guy is legit.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you say?
It is.
Yeah.
And that's where digital identity is important as well, right?
Yeah.
So you got to get the fundamentals right, and I think that's what's happening at the moment. The fundamentals is a digital identity system.
Correct.
And it is authority and authenticity of data, meaning you need to use probably blockchain technologies for this. But if you get those fundamental rights, then you start to have this transparency. And I almost, we talk about it as trust.
Yeah.
I call it almost trustless because it's digitally induced. So it's not about whether I trust the data. I'm getting the fact.
It's the truth. The source of truth.
Right?
Yeah.
And you can really crowd out any fraud that's happening in this space.
I kind of look at the way, in the context of what you're describing, almost a little bit like the M-Pesa transaction today, right? We take it for granted. We assume It's authentic, it's true, it is really money in my wallet. We never doubt for a second that it could be fake.
Yeah.
And I think that immutable data
Yeah.
is what your blockchain brings to the process, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Giving people that confidence that this is real.
Yeah.
This is authentic.
So there is a cultural lean-in, if you like, that people need to get used to new technologies, right? But I think it happens fast. Once you get the benefits, people gonna.
I have a theory. I've worked
happy.
in many technology businesses over the years, and what I've seen in Kenya, which is, in my opinion, a very early adopter market in the African continent, just by cultural factors, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's something in the water. But in Kenya, we just find that when something takes off, it just takes off. Smartphones came, they just took off. Internet came, it just took off. M-Pesa came, it just took off. Right now, I think we're the world leader in mobile transactions. But that being said, I'd want to ask you, looking forward, the next maybe 5-10 years down the road, based on what you're doing with Trademark and this platform, where do you see things going?
I think there's one vision that I love, and that is a Nigerian decides to buy some art from a person in Kenya, right, on the street market, and that you can actually enable that transaction, because that transaction would both enable that you can pay that first, you can see the goods, right? You can trust the goods. You can then pay the person for this. The person can pack it and ship it and get through all the customs, and it will reach the guy in Nigeria. And if we can get there, it will be pretty awesome, right?
It's like consumer to consumer, right? A transaction of that level.
Yeah.
So you think there's a possibility that it will cascade all the way to that position eventually?
E-commerce is, many parts of the world works almost like that today. But especially, in big markets where you don't have barriers internally, like the open EU or in US, that is very fluid, right?
Yeah.
So why shouldn't it be fluid the same way? But I do think that gotta get it, identity right. So you have to trust around these identities. And then you gotta have, the authority and authenticity of data, the right mix. Then it's all about process, which is a problem in itself, of course. But then, the technology is not the problem.
What about the aspect of when you think about a very broad set, and let's even go down to, let's say, micro SME level, using your platform directly or indirectly, as it were. Do you see digital literacy as a big factor as well, education, getting people to understand and appreciate how the system works?
I don't, I know it's a big topic and maybe I'm controversial here, but people have smartphones in their pockets, right? They can do all kinds of things with these. A system like this abstracts away all the complication of technology. So it's just a user interface, if you like. So I don't think that's, it's building trust that you actually trust this system, but the user faces will help anybody. And the great thing about technology is it democratizes access, right?
Correct.
You don't have to, as today, you don't have to know the perfect agent who knows how to call in the border agencies to get your documents faster through. You don't have to have that capability if you're a small guy and it's all digital, because you all have the same access.
Fantastic. Full transparency.
Full transparency,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A full equality in process, I would call it, maybe even.
Yeah, it's completely leveled.
Yeah.
It's leveled across the board. As we kind of come up to the end of our conversation, are there any parting shots or any additional insights you think our audience would find useful in understanding what it is that IOTA is doing here with Trademark, and more importantly, the broader ecosystem within digital trade across the African continent?
I heard a colleague talk about blockchain just now, as he was saying, awareness is an important thing, and I fully agree with her. You got to understand this is just another technology. I mean, I remember when my mom sent me my first email, right? She had everything up in the title, and
the way it was.
Yeah. We fast all picked this up once it's surfed right. We will all pick this up, but we need to understand it's not about Bitcoin. It's that's such a subsection of
just one of the use cases.
Yeah. It's
about the trusted environment, basically.
Exactly. And the key thing I think about blockchain that is different from many other technology is you don't use blockchain on your own data. You only use it in an ecosystem, right? because
yes,
you got to
of
have
course.
many actors. So the uptake we've seen, we saw the excitement of blockchain and then it went down. I think that curve is a bit longer than other technologies because you need a whole ecosystem to collaborate. It's not just one business-to-business interaction.
Yeah, it's
you
a
need to make
collective,
work. Yeah.
Awesome. And if people want to find out more about your organization, where can they find you?
So tlip.io is the system here in Kenya, and it's the system that we work with Trademark Africa to make available globally. We done something unique. We said, this is a technology that everybody should be able to use, and it should be very low cost, and it should not be controlled by one entity or one commercial actor in the middle. So we are right now forging a partnership that will involve the World Economic Forum, the Tony Blair Institute of Global Change, the Chartered Institute of Export and International Trade, Trademark Africa, and the IOTA Foundation, and somebody called the Global Alliance for Trade Facilitation. And they're all involved in trade. We said, you're the custodian of this technology. You make sure that this is not a profit-driven thing. This is something governments can get involved with. It's going to be open sourced, so they can hire any technology company to help them implement it. But the technology and the infrastructure itself should just be easily accessible. So by the governance of this, we're trying to enable that, not just by building it, but also building a governance that people can trust for the long term.
That is a game-changing model, if I think about it.
We're hoping.
And the fact that it's low cost, accessible, multi-stakeholder, it really does sound to me like it's something that is going to be an enabler for many.
We really hope so. It's very exciting.
Yeah, actually. It is. Thanks. So thanks so much for joining us and having this conversation with us. And more importantly, I think we wish you all the best with your go live, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish with your platform.
Thank you, Moses. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. So there you have it. Another Keep Trading Africa Trading episode here today for Trademark Africa. We're delighted that you're able to join us. And more importantly, I hope that his insights around how their platform from IOTA is sort of streamlining and also at the same time democratizing the ecosystem when it comes to digital trade in Africa. And we also wish them all the best going forward and seeing how the system is going to add value to digital trade in Africa. Thank you.